Good morning. My name is Nora Sachs, and I am one of the wellness co-directors here at Summit, alongside my twin sister, Emma. So yes, there's two of us. If I'm on the mic, you'll hear me say this a few times because everybody just needs to know I'm not changing outfits 6 times a day. So I'm really excited for our next talk with Bob Roth. It was such an honor to connect with him prior to this talk. We have a little comedy routine that has been going on backstage, but we'll probably save it for a future summit because we haven't gotten the approval from Jeff Rosenthal. So we'll see about that. So Bob is one of the most sought after and experienced meditation teachers in the United States. Over the last 50 years, he has taught meditation to thousands of people. He is also the author of the New York Times bestseller, Strength and Stillness: The Power of Transcendental Meditation. He also serves as the CEO of the David Lynch Foundation, which provides access to transcendental meditation to those who need it most, under-resourced populations. Through the David Lynch Foundation, they have been able to offer over 1 million scholarships for transcendental meditation to veterans suffering with PTSD, urban youth, and women and children who are survivors of domestic abuse. He has spoken at countless conferences across the world, and we're so excited to welcome him here today to Summit at Sea 2023. Welcome, Bob Roth.
Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. It's going to get warm. How many of you practice some form of meditation? And how many of you practice some form of meditation pretty darn regularly? And how many of you wish you meditated a little bit more regularly? So what I want to do in the next 3.5 hours, what I want to do is give you a little background on myself. I think John asked me to give a little, my little story, some work of the David Lynch Foundation, and then mainly I want to do sort of, since all of you have done some form of meditation, I want to do a little mini master class on the 3 basic types of meditation, what science tells us, and then dive a little more deeply into what we mean by transcendence. So, first of all, I've been meditating 54 years and teaching meditation for 51 years. And I am almost 73 years old, and it has been the single most important thing I've ever done to maintain my health. And so I am here as an advocate for incorporating meditation as a regular part of your daily life. Because increasingly, we are living in, you don't need me to tell you this, increasingly stressful times, traumatic times. And we need something to address that trauma and that stress, and we need something that's evidence-based. I'm, by the way, a big advocate of science. When you think of someone who's a meditation teacher, I'm not so much into, well, I'll put it this way. I love big ideas, but I like them to be grounded in reality, and I like them to be science-based. And so as a meditation teacher, my advocacy over the last 54 years is to establish meditation writ large and transcendental meditation as a medical intervention. Is it people here from CLIC? Yes. So CLIC is, and Lee Ram and the team, one of the most extraordinary organizations and individuals that I've ever met. And we're working with CLIC right now to find a way to bring transcendental meditation into the healthcare system so that every American can learn to meditate through Medicare, through Aetna, through Blue Cross Blue Shield. It is a challenge, but we have a way forward. And that is going to change this country. So a little bit about myself. Yeah. I really want to move meditation out of, I was just talking to Mark, and we were talking about, well, he sort of thought he's my age, younger. We were talking, well, meditation, isn't that some, the Beatles did it, and, the sort of hippies, and isn't it a far cry to get the idea of this could be in the healthcare system? And I really want to move meditation away from the Upper East Side, or away from people who think, well, my parents grew up this way, and my dad meditated, and I want to make this into a medical intervention. And a person can learn to meditate because they have high blood pressure, or they can learn to meditate because they suffer from anxiety or depression. But you pull one leg on a chair and all the other legs come along. And the other benefits of meditation, which is increased happiness, increased clarity, increased focus, increased satisfaction, come along with it. So my background, I grew up in a very political family in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s. I like to say my family was so political that I knew growing up that I was a Democrat well before I knew I was Jewish. So that was my background. And I worked for Senator Bobby Kennedy, Sr. And I wanted to change the world, as we wanted to do at that time. And I saw Bobby Kennedy speak in June 1st, 1968, at the San Francisco Civic Auditorium. And I looked around the room, and it wasn't that I was a Democrat. It was just there were 2,000 people, and we were going to change this world. And 4 days later, he was assassinated, and that was, for me, a very devastating impact. So I went to Berkeley. I did it all. I went to UC Berkeley in 1968. Not a lefty or a righty or a hippie or a druggie, but just this nice sort of innocent guy. I want to make a better world. And through politics, I was going to get a law degree, and then I was going to I want to be a U.S. Senator like Bobby Kennedy and change the world. It took about a month at Berkeley to realize politics, while important, was never going to heal the soul of the nation. So my mom was a school teacher, and I thought I could write, don't worry, I'm going to get to meditation. This isn't just some self thing. I'm going to get to this. But I thought, all right, I'll write educational curriculum. I'll get a degree in educational curriculum. I'll develop educational curriculum, and then start working with the kids, if you know the Bay Area and South San Francisco, East Oakland, tough areas where kids didn't have a way forward. And even then, in 1968, recognizing trauma and stress as a real issue, and I would write curriculum for them and give them tools to make their way through life. I was pretty stressed. I was going to school full-time. My dad had me working full-time. There were riots over Vietnam in the streets. There was a place called People's Park down the street from me. It was a very traumatic time. And I was not going to get into something weird. My dad was a doctor. I'm sort of his son. And there was all sorts of crazy stuff going on. But there was one guy I was working with, had an ice cream, Swenson's ice cream. Too much information? Swenson's ice cream. And he was very cool. There was something about him that was just very steady and real and like nobody else. Turned out he was doing transcendental meditation. I said, I am not into that stuff. And he said, you don't have to be in any of it. You don't have to believe in this meditation. You don't have to believe in any of it. And he held up, I kid you not, an ice cream scoop in one hand, and he dropped it in the other. And he said, you don't have to believe in gravity for this ice cream scoop to fall. You don't have to believe in meditation for it to work. So I learned it. After my first or second meditation, it was so relaxing. It was so significant. I remember thinking to myself, maybe this is the tool I want to bring those kids. That was June 28th, 1969. Now, almost 54 years later, I run a foundation that's brought the meditation to 1 million kids for free in the US and all over the world. We are working with the VA and the Department of Defense to bring this to veterans. 22 veterans take their own lives every day in this country. A national shame. Absolutely unforgivable. We work in New York City. We work with Department of Education. We're offering this to kids, but right now, school teachers. Frontline, we're in 50 hospitals in New York City. We want to be in 50 hospitals in every city. Doctors and nurses in ICU units and in emergency rooms. I could go on and on. I won't. You get the idea. So what do I mean? What do we mean when we talk about meditation? So I just have to say, they're very promising, and that's why the click folks are so important. And I'm going to pause. Is Matt Saket here? Matt is a professor of psychiatry at Harvard and also runs the Department of Meditation Research programs at Harvard. Matt is a sign of changing times. If you all meditate, he's the guy changing times. He's doing research not just on the stress benefits of TM, but the long-term effects of meditation. So if we're looking at what it means to have the neurophysiology of a more enlightened society, he's our guy. So anyway, what do I mean by meditation? For those of you, few people who did not raise your hands as a meditation. Is this clear so far? Mildly interesting? Good? Okay. So, that's okay. So, I like to use the analogy of an ocean. You're on a little boat, not a big one. This is like a floating city, but a little boat, and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and all of a sudden you get these huge waves. 20, 30-foot high waves. And you could think the whole ocean is in upheaval. Whole ocean is a bit of an exaggeration because if you did a cross-section of the ocean, you'd realize that while you have these 20, 30-foot high waves on the surface, the depth of the ocean is actually pretty darn quiet. And while the nature of the ocean on the surface can be turbulent, the nature of the ocean at its depth can be pretty darn silent. Analogous to the mind. Surface of our mind is the active thinking mind. Some people call it the monkey mind. I like to call it the gotta mind. As in, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to call him, and I got to call her, and I got to make a list, and I got to find the list, and I got to make a new list, and I got to slow down, and I got to get going, and I got to get to sleep, and I got to get up. Anybody? Not? So it's a natural human desire. It doesn't matter whether we meditate or not. Natural human desire to say, I'd like some inner calm. I'd like some inner clarity, some inner equanimity, some inner connectedness. You guys have heard this talk a million times. Some inner connectedness. And the operative word there is inner. And the question is there such a thing as an inner? And if so, how do we get there? Enter the realm of meditation. And there's gazillions of meditations out there these days. But according to brain science, there's 3 basic types. And why brain science? Because neuroscience tells us that for every discrete experience that we have, it creates a discrete impact on the brain. So if I listen to classical music it has one effect on my brain. If I listen to heavy metal music, it has another effect on my brain. If I watch a romantic comedy movie, it has one effect on my brain. If I watch a David Lynch film, it has another effect on my brain. So if we want to understand the effect of meditation, and I say this to you right now so you can sort of classify in your mind what type of meditation you're doing. So pause again, because what you're doing is absolutely essential and will become more so as life continues, because we are on a crazy ass trajectory right now in our country and our world. So what you're doing, you are early adopters, and what you're doing is going to help heal yourself and prevent sickness and suffering in a very significant way. So 3 things. So what do we know from neuroscience? 3 basic types of meditation. First is called focused attention. Focused attention is just what it means. If you practice a form of meditation where you try and clear your mind of thoughts, where you concentrate on your point in your body, or your breath, or an idea, clear your mind of thoughts, difficult to do, focused attention. When we do that, it creates something called, that would be like, back to the ocean analogy. If I want to have a calm ocean, what disrupts a calm ocean? Waves. So if I could stop all the waves on the ocean, I'd have a calm ocean. If I want to have a calm mind, what disrupts a calm mind? Thoughts. So if I could stop or minimize thoughts, I'd have a calm mind. When I do that, it creates, among other things, and there's still questions, gamma brain waves. Let's just say 20 to 50 cycles per second. Your brain is working hard. Second approach, open monitoring. Are these terms familiar to any of you? Open monitoring. Open monitoring is just what it means. Dispassionately observing your thoughts, your moods, your feelings. So if I have a thought about a guy named Joe, and 10 years ago Joe done me wrong, and I think about Joe, open monitoring teaches me dispassionately observe that, be in the present moment. Because if I have a thought about a guy named Joe and Joe never done me wrong, whatever, no stress. So be in the present moment. Watch the waves rise and fall. Perfect for athletes. You have a great game, baseball game, you do great, or you have a bad game the next day, you got to get rid of that. Got to be in the present moment. Not easy to do. Creates, among other things, theta brain waves. 4 to 8 cycles per second. That's how many times it oscillates in a second. These 2 types of meditation are called cognitive approaches to meditation. Adapting, adjusting your thoughts, your moods, your feelings, your actions. The third type, this is what I've actually taught all 3 and learned all 3, but this is one I teach primarily, called self-transcending. And that includes transcendental meditation. Transcendental meditation recognizes that just as there is a vertical dimension to the ocean, turbulent on the surface, quiet at its depth, there's a vertical dimension to our mind. And it hypothesizes that deep within every one of us, right now, and at all times, there's a level where our mind is already quiet and calm and settled and awake. We don't have to believe that. We don't have to visualize that. We don't have to try for that. It's there. We've just lost access to it. I remember telling that to this Wall Street guy, and he said, "What the hell are you talking about?" a quiet level of your mind. And I said, you'll have a good intuition. We all have a good intuition. Somebody tells you, you should go out with that guy. I was at Mindy Kaplan's mailroom the other day. Careful. And there was a lot of question about how do I know if this is the right guy, girl? So you have the intuition, or someone comes to you with a business idea, and it makes perfectly good sense on the surface. And then you get home and you think quietly about it, and you go, I don't think so. And someone says, why? And you said, doesn't feel right. You guys do that all the time. That's a quiet level of the mind. In self-transcending, we hypothesize that even deeper than that, profoundly deep level of our self, there's a level where the mind is already quiet and settled and wide awake. In the past, people have used big words: pure consciousness, transcendental consciousness, silent something, moment of silence. Today, they would say hypometabolic state. Not easy to write a poem with that name. Or restful alertness. In any case, it's a level of our innermost being that's there, and we've lost access. And Transcendental Meditation gives effortless access to that transcendent part of our being. I don't want to go a second over. Okay. Big words. Transcendental consciousness, pure consciousness, hypometabolic state. Big words. How do we know that we're accessing that when we transcend? Transcend just means to settle down. I'll talk about that later, to settle down. How do we know we're experiencing that unique state? Science. During Transcendental Meditation, there is a unique brainwave signature called alpha 1, 8 to 10 cycles per second. And that is a state of, use that term again, restful alertness, where we're calm inside, but awake. And not only is it that, it's across the whole brain, according to EEG research. The whole brain is in that alpha 1 state and coherent, like a wave all together, connected all together. You ever heard of cortisol? Of course. Cortisol stress hormone, if we get a good night's sleep, cortisol levels drop 10%, maybe. During 20 minutes of TM, cortisol levels drop 30 to 40%. Unique, and stays down. You know serotonin? Serotonin, happiness hormone, goes up and stays up. There's been tens of millions, and I'm almost done with this, but I love science. There have been tens of millions of dollars given by the National Institutes of Health on the effects of this on high blood pressure. You may not have high blood pressure, but 110 million Americans do. And the research shows that this meditation is as effective, if not more so, for lowering high blood pressure than antihypertensive medication. I want to say something else. People don't get dementia starting at the age of 65, particularly women. It starts way earlier. 20s, 30s, 40s. People don't get high blood pressure at the age of 50 or 60 or 70. It starts way earlier, way because it's different for each person. So in my focus here on health and stress and anxiety, I talk about it because, again, if I have a mission, it's people should meditate, evidence-based meditation, and you should do it regularly, because 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. You should do it regularly because, as one person said, it was a great time. So I'm going to tell you about this Wall Street guy. And then, so this Wall Street guy, he said, I believe meditation works. I just don't have the time, right? That resonates. Who's got the time? And so he had a 16-year-old kid with him, who I'm sure was sent as a spy by his wife and the kid's mom. And the kid said, like he was mouthing a line, Dad, 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 there's 1,440 minutes in a day. You don't have a little bit of time to meditate? And the dad was buying it. My son is a smart kid. And then the kid blew it, because then he quoted his mother. He said, Dad, you need to spend a little more time with your own self-care. Immediately that smacked of his wife's words. But it's true. 1,440 minutes in a day. We have to prioritize. Last thing I want to talk about is, what do we mean by transcendence and transcendental? People will say to me, well, how is this different than regular meditation? And what do you mean by transcendental meditation? And they said, that's a weird word. And I said, we actually seek transcendence all the time. If you look up in the dictionary what it means to be transcendence, what it means to go beyond ordinary human limitations. We love a moment of transcendence when you go to a concert and you had no idea how good that band or that person was going to be. Know that experience? You're just going completely innocently, not thinking like, this is going to be the greatest experience ever. You go to a restaurant, you're never going to go to a better restaurant, which of course, you have been to a better restaurant. But you go in with that innocence and you hear that music and it transports you. You have that moment. Or holding a newborn child in your arms. Time drifts, just slips away. That transcendence comes from access to an experience of wonder, of awe. We look for that in our life. We want that in our intimacy in our partner. We want, at least sometimes, the experience of wonder, of awe, of transcendence, of connection. It's a natural human desire. We want it. We want more of that. And someone asked me this question before I went on, so I'm going to answer it. But before I do that, I want to go on record saying, I do not believe one meditation is better than another. I believe different meditations have different outcomes. And you cannot tell me that vitamin A is always better than vitamin C. They have different outcomes. So mindfulness practices, devotional practices can have a particular outcome. Transcending has an outcome of profound rest, relaxation, healing from stress, reducing cortisol. So I just want to take a moment and then I'm going to have the wonderful Nora come on stage and she has a few questions. How does this work? How do I get from here to here? And the word I'm going to use is effortlessly, effortlessly. You're sitting in a room and you're listening to some really bad music. And in the other room, unbelievably great music comes on. Where's your attention go? Someone gives you 2 books to read on a vacation. One book, how it got published, you have no idea. It's so bad. You read a page just out of guilt, so you can tell your friend, I started the book. The other book, Phenomenal. Great. Now, what is that? And what does it have to do with meditation? Your attention being drawn to that music, your attention absorbed in a book. What is that? Built in to the human mind is the natural tendency to be drawn to something more satisfying. It's not hard to watch a great movie. It's hard to watch a bad one. So the nature of the mind is to be drawn to something more satisfying. The mind seeks happiness, looks for happiness outward through the senses. That relationship will make me happy. That food will make me happy. That concert will make me happy. Little happinesses, but we're drawn to it. Inside, hypothetically, is a really nice place. My own innermost self. In self-transcending, we just simply learn how to give the attention of the mind in inward direction. Like you teach a child how to dive. You say, honey, stand like this, take the correct angle, and then automatically gravity takes over. You don't have to say, keep going. Gravity takes over. So in this self-transcending, give the attention of the mind in inward direction, and without any effort whatsoever, the attention is just drawn inward, effortlessly. Why? Because deeper levels are more satisfying of you. We already know that anyway. When you want to talk to your partner about something important, you don't say, let's go to a loud sports bar. You say, let's go play someplace quiet. So deeper levels, more satisfying. So attention of the mind in inward direction, and automatically, without any effort, your attention is drawn inward. With no effort. Any effort slows the process. And when that happens, like me as an 18-year-old snotty-nosed, smart-ass, skeptical kid, when I learned to meditate, the whole thing happens on its own. For that, when you learn the meditation, you receive a mantra. And TM, a mantra, is a word or a sound that has no meaning associated with it. That's important, because if it had a meaning, you're stuck on the surface. Has no meaning associated with it, and the mantra is known to be positive and life-supporting. So you learn this from a certified teacher, and then the teacher teaches you on one day, and then on 3 follow-up days for about an hour, you learn some more, and then you've got it for the rest of your life. I mean, there's a wonderful follow-up program, but you've got it. I'll go back to my original point. We're moving again. And if you're a parent, or you're the child of parents who are one or more who are going through difficult times, and with the economy the way it is, and the political scene the way it is, the ability to have resilience, the ability to have clear thinking, the ability to have, they call it, you ever heard the term window of tolerance? It's a great term. Imagine 2 parallel lines. Inside is your window of tolerance. Life comes at you like a sine wave. COVID, lose a job, child gets sick, whatever's coming at you. If my window of tolerance is narrow, I'm constantly getting electrocuted by the top or bottom lines, constantly getting triggered. What meditation does, and eating properly and exercise, and getting enough sleep, what that does expands our window of tolerance so that we can live life gracefully, productively, in a satisfying way. So this talk today and tomorrow at 9:15, in case you were wondering why I'm not doing it, we're going to do some, not TM, but we're going to do some meditation, some breathing work, and some body scan. You've all done it, but we'll do it together as a group, and that'll be great. But I was asked to sort of give an intellectual understanding of the underpinnings of what is now and will be one of the most pivotal things that we're going to be able to do. I was just at, it's not as good as this, but I was at TED Talks. It was all about AI. And they said, whatever the internet has done to disrupt the world and create stress and all of that, it's done wonderful things. AI is going to exponent, in spades. So what's coming? Big. So I congratulate you, those of you who do your meditation. I encourage you to be regular with your practice. I also encourage you, if your meditation, or if you want to, if you do TM, to explore something else, Transcendental Meditation. If you do something else, explore TM. You're not going to get in trouble. This is not a religion. This is just a tool in a toolbox. And we all need to have very, 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 very robust toolbox. So thank you very, very much.
Thanks so much, Bob. So we can just sit here. Amazing. So we spoke a bit about the creative process when we had our conversation, and I brought up Rick Rubin's latest book, which has been so inspiring to me in my creative process and in art, something I've never considered myself an artist. So I was hoping you could speak a little bit to how TM might enhance creativity.
There's a new understanding that's just, and I don't even know if Matthew is aware of this, but there's, the understanding that it used to be that if you're a right hemispheric person, you're the creative type. You've heard that. And if you're a left hemisphere person, then you're the analyst. You've heard that? Yeah. And it's not true. It was like everywhere, and it's like saying that we only use 10% of our brain. It's just not true. There's not a region of the brain that is drives creativity. It's networks within the brain that drive creativity. And one of the principal understandings, there's 3 networks. One is called the attention control center, which is near the prefrontal cortex, front of the brain, and that's your concentration, focus. If you have a good idea for a business, you have a good idea for anything, you can have the good idea, but in the creative process, if you don't have the ability to focus and get it done, doesn't happen. There's no creative process there. So that's the and that takes a lot of work, a lot of effort. So brain researchers some years ago said, well, what is the brain doing when it's resting? What is the brain, and this is going to tie into creativity, what does the brain do when it's resting? Turns out the brain never rests. Brain is always active. But sometimes the brain is active but not focused. And they call that the default mode network. Anybody hear that? These are all things it's good to know because this is your brain. This is your operating system. Default mode network. And that's when your brain is just not focused but active. And they originally thought that the default mode network was when your brain was just wasting time, just mind wandering. They were very dismissive, or rumination. Now they know otherwise. There's a new name for the default mode network, the imagination network, and get this one, the genius lounge. Is that great? The default mode network as the genius lounge. And the genius lounge is when we're not focused and jamming. The genius lounge, the default mode network, gets activated when you can't figure out something. And then you ever had this, and the solution comes when you're taking a hot shower? Doesn't sound appealing right now. You're taking a cool shower. Or when you go for a walk. Had that? Yeah. When you're off task. And the process, the creative process, went back and forth between the good idea and the focus, and the good idea and the focus. Stress interrupts both. The stress, like if you're stressed, you can't focus, right? Just all over the place. Or if your kid has got to focus on her homework or his homework, can't focus, stressed. Stress disrupts the innovation, genius lounge, writer's block. The most creative people are the people who have both the ability to focus and innovate. Those two networks. And initial research on transcendental meditation shows, and Rick Rubin has been a 40-year meditator, shows that it activates both of those networks, the ability to focus and the ability to innovate at the same time. So I'm going back to a brain-based answer to that question because I love, I could have said, it puts you in touch with your innermost creative self, which is true. But when you have your experience of your innermost creative self, it also affects all these parts of the brain.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. I'm going to switch gears a little bit to some of the work that you're doing with the David Lynch Foundation, which is incredible. And I think that more people need to know about it. And so can you speak to the University of Chicago Crime Lab and the progress that you're seeing there?
Yeah, that's just our ongoing study to measure and document the effects of meditation in all these different areas of society. And it's part of an initiative called Meditate America. Meditate America. And that is, again, with the help of Click, to bring meditation. So there's no obstacle for a person to learn to meditate, to have it covered by insurance companies, by government, by businesses, and so that's what the University of Chicago Crime Lab was looking at, the effects of meditation on teachers and students. But I think that's part of a bigger thing, which is, it's a twofold thing. I don't want meditation, there to be any obstacle to a person learning to meditate, financial or otherwise, but I also want young people to become teachers of the meditation and to get a good salary so that, like a college professor or senior high school teacher. So if it's covered by insurance, then it means people can have access to meditation, and the teachers of the meditation can make it as a curriculum, as a profession.
Thank you. And I'd love if you could just tell a little story. We're not big name droppers at Summit. However, over the years, you have really become the go-to meditation teachers for stars like Tom Hanks and Jonah Hill, Katy Perry, Hugh Jackman. The list goes on. I just dropped a lot of names.
Well, at least we're not dropping names. The most kindest, wonderful person that I meet these people because of David Lynch. So it's not like I knock on doors or something, but David Lynch knows these people. So the kindest, most genuine human being of them all is Hugh Jackman. Absolutely. He has 2 adopted children. He's devoted. He's just beautiful soul. But I knew how much work was cut out for me and work with meditation when I was asked to go to Tom Hanks's house to give a talk. I was in the vicinity. Could I drop by and tell him what meditation was? Because he was unable to work past 1:00 in the afternoon. He was so tired. And, I was wearing typical New York City attire, blue jeans and a sport coat. And I go to his house and knock on his door. And he opens the door and he takes this giant step back. And I thought to myself, a little overacting, Mr. Hanks. And I said, what was that all about? He said, you're a meditation teacher. I said, yeah. He said, I expected you to be wearing yoga pants and have a man bun. And I said, if it was your cardiologist coming to your house, you wouldn't think that. But that's when I knew that there was still some work to do in educating people about that meditation doesn't have to have an affectation. If people naturally are that way, fine, but it shouldn't be branded with that.
Thank you. And then, the last question. So when I was introduced to TM, it was actually at Summit, and I heard about it from a few people who worked here with me, and I was really skeptical. I, am a product of the culture of hyper individualization and independence. And I didn't like that I needed to have a teacher or pay a fee. I thought I could just do it myself. And so I'd love to just close on that, on what you say to the skeptics like me. And I know that you are a skeptic as well. And we've got some good questioners of all things in the audience. So I'd love to close with that.
I think skepticism is really healthy. I think it's really healthy. I think there's a lot of crazy out there. And more now as people think that they can make some money off of this whole field. So there's a difference between being a skeptic and being a cynic. A cynic, you never get out of bed. Skeptic means show me. And so I think skepticism just personally is really healthy. When I look at meditation, again, I look at it as something sustainable. I run a nonprofit, and we're now almost 20 years, and I said million people, and we want to have 1 million people in 18 years. I want to have 5 million people in the next 5 years and increase those numbers, and we can do it. But to be a nonprofit, which is fine, which is what we are, but you want to have a profession of young people who would like to become meditation teachers. That's what they'd like to do as a profession. Well, those teachers would also like to have a family, raise children, go on a vacation, have insurance. They need to have a sustained income. And it's dreaming. This isn't the 60s anymore. It's dreaming otherwise. For David Lynch Foundation and TM, there's a course fee that's asked, and it's based on a person's salary, and it's scaled on that. And if a person has no money, then they can contact me at the David Lynch Foundation or the David Lynch Foundation, and then we try to give them a scholarship so that no one is turned away. But if we want to scale this on a big way, like it's a medical intervention, that's not practical. I can't get that many emails. So that's why we want to have insurance companies covered, or businesses or schools. Or right now, for example, we gave a pilot funding for a hospital in Providence, Rhode Island. There was 30 frontline doctors and nurses, and those people are getting decimated they're just leaving the profession in droves. And we gave 30. They said they didn't have any money. The results were so significant, they called us up and said, we've now got money for 200 people. I thought, that's magical money. And so I think that as we demonstrate its effectiveness and utilitarianism, then it's going to happen. So to answer the question, I'm just very transparent. I say, I don't want there to be any barrier to anyone ever learning to meditate. That's why we want to have it covered, like insurance has covered it. So to conclude, a single mom going out of her mind with 2 young children, highly stressed, can go to her doctor, and the doctor could prescribe an anti-anxiety medication and could prescribe TM. And both would be reimbursed by Medicare by her health insurance policy. It's not too much to ask, and you know what? It will change this blankety blank world. So thank you very, very, very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you all. We've got lots of wonderful sessions going on today, so enjoy your Friday.
Thank you all. Oh, I give you my email address if you want it. You can email me if you want to write this down. And it goes to me. This doesn't go to someone else. It's bob@davidlynchfoundation.org. bob@davidlynchfoundation.org. Okay, thanks.